Spring, it feels like I haven't seen you in a millennium. We're finally back between the pipes here on Altitude Sports Radio socials, on X, on YouTube, on Twitch. Alex Ryanemi, Mark Springer. 4-2 Avs win on the road to Anaheim thanks to 3 points from Nathan MacKinnon, a goal and assist from Cale Makar. The power play continues to look great after being ice cold for the better part of 3 weeks. We got a Sam Girard penalty shot tonight, and Scott Wedgwood continues to look awesome. I know it's a bad team. I know it's a team that's going to be picking in the top 3 most likely of this year's NHL entry draft. But Anaheim kind of brought it. I thought that their pace was really good today. The Avs weathered a good first period. And Scott Wedgwood made the big save when he needed to. That backdoor blocker save when the Avs were up 1. They have to kill off a penalty at the end of that game, man. I love the goaltending situation right now.
Yeah, no, first of all, happy to be back on Between the Pipes. I mean, when we last left you, Mackenzie Blackwood got his first home win. I haven't even mentioned the name Kiefer Sherwood on this show. I just need to mention the name Kiefer Sherwood. That he was responsible for the 1 loss on this road trip. Turnaround in San Jose, good fight. Good fight. Mackenzie Blackwood, my gosh, he's so much better than Alexander Georgiev. And then Scott Wedgwood, yeah, that's a good backup goaltender. And he was great tonight. The Ducks outshoot the Avs. I think it's 31-23. Anaheim coming off of a home win against the Winnipeg Jets. They were just under 500 coming into tonight at 12-14 and whatever their OT loss total is. They go to Columbus before that. Now they struggled. They went out east and struggled until they finally got a win in Columbus. And I like that Columbus team. Look, I like Leo Carlson. I like Mason McTavish. I like this young Ducks team. We got to see John Gibson tonight. This was, we're living in Blackwood world over here. John Gibson was an option that we talked about, and at least he's got term on his contract. John Gibson had a great save in this game where he slides and lifts a pad. I love that variety of save. I think it robbed Cale Makar. Great cross-ice pass from McKinnon to feed Makar. We had a missed high stick in this game. Initially a correctly called high stick, and then the refs gather and say, no, it was a puck that hit McKinnon in the face, which I think it did.
It did. The puck hit him after the high stick. So what we learned tonight is that if you bitch and complain long enough to the referees and loud enough, you can just get calls overturned in this league.
Yeah, it was so odd. And the refs confer, and the fans, the Ducks got in their head, made them think they got it wrong. But look, on one hand, that's a terrible missed call, and it's a shame because it was correctly called initially. But the hockey gods spoke, and then the Avs go on and they score the next 3 goals after that. I guess if you had the over 6.5 in this game, that's a moment you look back on, because maybe they could have had a power play there, and the Avs power play has been great. But they overcame a missed call. They didn't let it affect them, and they were just very good. Anaheim, they have those makings. The Avs are built on a handful of players that they drafted high and turned into something. Maybe this happens with Anaheim in a couple years. These kids are young for them, but the Avs showed that they're the more polished, experienced team. Even on the second night of a back-to-back, that's exactly what they should have done.
Yeah, they're certainly building this team through the middle. They get Leo Carlson, which is your pick that's directly after Connor Bedard, if I'm correct in that draft pick.
Yep.
So it ends up being a nice little consolation for them. Leo Carlson's the truth. I love watching that guy play. They have Mason McTavish as another young centerman who probably schedules to be either a low-end number 2 center in this league or a true number 3 when he actually comes into form, and then you supplement that with your Ryan Stromes, your Alex Killorns, your Robbie Fabbris, the veterans to bring those guys along. I still think they're another elite draft pick away from really putting these things together. They have a menacing back end in terms of guys who can take your block off. It started with Radko Gudas. donning the C for the first time this year for the Ducks. They obviously make the big trade for Jacob Trouba to take his contract off of Chris Drury's hands with the New York Rangers. Trouba tried to run into a couple of guys today, wasn't necessarily successful, nearly caught Logan O'Connor on the train tracks early on in this game. They're putting it together. I still think 1 or 2 drafts away. You didn't get to see their number 1 netminder today in Lucas Dostal, who has been sensational this year in terms of keeping the Ducks in games that they shouldn't be in. I saw the John Gibson tonight that I would have loved to have seen on the Avs, but after what I've seen from Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood over every single one of their starts, man, I don't miss John Gibson at all. Like I don't sit there having buyer's envy. I'm not looking in the windows of of Macy's down there in Manhattan wishing that I had those big Christmas presents. No, Blackwood and Wedgwood, the woodshed is the truth.
Well, yeah, no, Scott Wedgwood is good, but on a night in, night out basis, and fortunately right now it doesn't seem like we're going to have to see that, but I would be concerned that if he was your one going 90% of your starts, that eventually it would get exposed a little bit. But Mackenzie Blackwood gives me all of the confidence in the world. I mean, he looks like that goaltender. And maybe I'm just selling Wedgwood short because he's been very good in almost all of his appearances with the Avs, not even starts, because his first appearance was a relief appearance for Mr. Georgiev. Yeah, John Gibson, at least he would have given you, some security had you gotten Anaheim to eat some money because he's under contract for the next couple seasons. Blackwood, an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And Gibson's a good goalie, and his best in the NHL has been pretty good. But Blackwood's upside is probably, I've said this even before the trade, his upside is probably higher than Gibson's, higher than Binnington's, who would have been the other Gibson. But, we don't like to talk about that because Avs fans get all triggered. But Blackwood's upside, man, I mean, it is extremely high. I think higher than Gibson.
I think Blackwood's upside is the peak of what we saw from John Gibson 5 years ago when he was in the conversation of like, oh, should this guy be winning Vezina trophies? And then he kind of fell off of a cliff. I think that's where the Blackwood ceiling is. In terms of the current ceilings of both of those goaltenders, Blackwood's he's in a different stratosphere as compared to any one of the netminders that you could have gone out and gotten. I think he's got a higher dose of potential than Binnington does. He certainly does over an aging John Gibson. I really like that goaltender, man, but I still think Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic hit these things out of the water. If you look at the game logs from Scott Wedgwood, ever since he came over to the Avalanche, today's game, he puts up a .935 save percentage in his 6 games with Colorado this year. His save percentages look like this: 1,882, which was the loss against Carolina, and there were 2 goals in that game that he certainly wanted back. And then he posts another 1,000, right, in the win against New Jersey when he shuts him out, a 926, and then 19 of 22 for an 864 in the loss against Utah. He has been, as a backup, pretty damn good. If you look at those 4 games out of the 6, he's got a 926 save percentage, a 935 tonight, and 2 1,000s to go along with a couple of games that average out at about 870. That's more than enough from what a backup should be doing.
No, absolutely. No, the goaltending room is, I haven't felt this confident about it maybe in the entirety of this window. For real. I mean, I guess the only comparison would be Kemper and Francouz. So since then, at the very least, when you're talking about 2, especially, because look, Georgiev was very good in his first season, and I was high on him, and I was optimistic. But Francouz was dealing with injuries. He was in and out of the lineup at that point. So when you're talking 2 goaltenders, I mean, yeah, this is the most confident I felt. But look, Wedgwood's been great. I am absolutely loving what I'm seeing from Blackwood, even more so. So that's, as good as Wedgwood's been, I feel even better about Blackwood, and that right there is why I'm in love with this goaltending room right now.
And I think before we get into what actually happened on the ice tonight outside of the crease, we'd be remiss not to talk about what happened in San Jose last night, where the game script played out exactly how you would have expected an Alexander Georgiev game to play out for the Avalanche. He lets the first goal in on the first shot, which comes off the end boards. And we saw that happen multiple times tonight for Scott Wedgwood, where a shot goes wide and he's not just caught by surprise when the thing comes off of, the boards, which are bouncy and always have been bouncy in this league. Wedgwood doesn't get surprised. He finds the puck, he covers it, and you go to a draw. Georgiev gets surprised by a bounce somehow. Nichushkin slides it under his pad. First shot on goal goes in. Then he tamps it down, right? Which we saw a lot from him when he was a member of the Avs this year. He led in that first one, and then he was pretty good for a while to keep the Avs in the game. He did that for San Jose last night. They get out to a 2-1 lead. And then what does he do in the third period in crunch time? He lets in a weak shot from Joel Kiviranta on the dot line that hits his pad and goes up and into the net. And it was the back-breaking goal that you saw San Jose go, fuck. And then the Avs end up burying another 2 and the game's over.
Yeah, no, the game-winning goal, the Kiviranta goal especially, was classic Georgiev. I mean, he's a ghost. It goes right through him. That's the type of shot that, a lot of you want to see that saved. You do. And look, Kiviranta puts it in a good spot, but that should be saved. It should be. They get outshot tonight 32 to 23, and they win because they get goaltending that only allows 2 goals. They get outshot in San Jose by 3, but Blackwood only allows 2 goals, so they can win that game. Blackwood only allows 2 goals in Vancouver. The offense was a little anemic, but that puts you in a position to win when you're only allowing 2 goals. The third was an empty netter in that game. Blackwood only allows 2 goals in the Nashville start, his debut. They're on a stretch when you're only allowing 2 goals. With this offense, the Vancouver nights are going to be few and far between. Yep. Most nights, this team is going to get you at least 2 goals. So now they can win lower scoring games. They can go on the road where you are more likely to get outshot despite how good you may be. And even in San Jose, even in Anaheim, you can get outshot, but you can still win those games because you have the goaltending, and then you have an offense that can score clutch goals. And now all of a sudden you're winning 3-2 games. I expect more of those as this season progresses, and these are more playoff style games.
Yeah, the shot on goal totals don't concern me right now. I suppose if this were to be a consistent trend where you're only, putting 20 to 24 shots on goal per game, you're consistently getting outshot by, 8 to 12 in a matchup, I think I would get a little bit nervous. But I do like the fact that the team kind of realizes that we don't have to press as hard as possible on the offensive side of the puck and outshoot a team 40 to 23 to win a game by a score of 5-4. I think that's something that the team's probably adjusting to right now is we can take advantage of grade A scoring opportunities to win games rather than leaving our asses bare on the backside and just giving up odd man rush after odd man rush or leaving the defensive zone early because you have to worry about scoring, knowing that some weird, sketchy goal is bound to go in against you. I'm okay with them being outshot. It's something I'll have to get used to, right? Because that's who the Bednar Avalanche have been for the last 6 years since you and I have been doing this show. It is a team that just they suppress shots in the D zone and they double shots on bad teams. I'm okay with the new little experiment.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's going to happen on the road too. It's more likely to happen on the road where you're more likely to get outshot. But when you have, the key is the goaltending. When you have this goaltending, it's gonna give you chances to steal more road games, and even at home to win lower scoring games. So yeah, I can't say enough about the goaltending. How about Parker Kelly? How about Parker freaking Kelly getting a shorthanded goal?
Maybe his best game as an app today.
Logan O'Connor, he feeds Kiviranta on that game winner just after last night, just after a second consecutive penalty kill expires. OC feeds Parker Kelly here. And man, great read from OC to see Kelly on the other side. And then I'm sure when Kelly gets that pass, he knows I got an opportunity here. I'm not letting this go to waste. And Kelly's more comfortable now. Kelly has been in this system for 2 months now. Like, there was some confidence on that shot from Parker Kelly. He's starting to get more comfortable. The team's accepting him because he plays hard. He's played his ass off on that third line. And for him to finish, that's his best goal of the season. I think his only other even strength goal or non-empty net goal before this was just kind of a toss from nowhere. This one was legit. So very happy for Parker Kelly. That line, Kiviranta gets 2 last night. Kelly scores tonight. O'Connor's playing everywhere right now. Love to see that from Parker Kelly.
Yeah, you had a bunch of guys log a ton of minutes tonight. Yuri Anala in his NHL debut plays 7 minutes and 9 seconds. You get 8 minutes from Ivan. They throw Giovanni Smith out there for 6 minutes and 8 seconds, but most, if I'm correct, I think he got 2 minutes of penalty kill time tonight. So you're getting small contributions in terms of time on ice from that fourth line, because your third line is now inching closer and closer and closer to the minutes that your second line plays. And Parker Kelly he's been the catalyst of that, man. I think he sees Logan O'Connor's foot speed. He sees how engaged he is in every single play. Those guys feed off of one another. I love watching those guys play, and it takes so much pressure off those top 6 forwards that you can get off the ice. And at the very least, that third line is going to keep a puck out of your own net so you can chill for 2.5 minutes, and then you get to go on offense again. It is a properly functioning third line is key to a championship roster.
And it's some of these guys are going to be playing fourth line when Jonathan Drouin and Miles Wood gets back. So the team is absolutely stacked. You got Keaton Middleton throwing hands early in this game, dude. So Keaton, hold on, let me confirm this. Keaton Middleton, I think he's like 26 years old.
Yeah, he's the younger 26. brother. He's the younger brother of Philip, right? Philip Middleton in Minnesota.
Jacob. I want to say it's Jacob Middleton.
Jake Middleton. I think I played hockey with the Phil Middleton back in the day. That might be it.
He looks like he's 36. Keaton Middleton looks like he's 36 years old. That beard is full as hell. That man looks like he's lived a full life, but somehow he's only 26 years old. He is a big boy. And the Ducks tried to make this a little bit of a scrappy game tonight, but you got a Keaton Middleton out there. You got a Giovanni Smith out there. It's going to deter some of these other teams, at least until Josh Manson gets back. Keaton Middleton bringing the physicality for the Avalanche.
I wonder how much you're going to see out of either one of those two players. I've actually really liked watching Keaton Middleton play. He covers so much ice for such a big dude. And he's far more effective than a Curtis McDermott was when he was playing for the Avs. I feel more comfortable when Middleton is on the ice. Giovanni Smith, he was a second-round draft pick I think it was like 2017 for the Detroit Red Wings. He was highly sought after, a big body enforcer type that still had some skill. I don't know how much run he's going to get when the Avs get Jonathan Drouin back in the fold, or if they ever get Landeskog back on this team. Giovanni Smith might be a guy that you see sent back down to the American League or become a healthy scratch. I'd still like to see Middleton get some run. I'd like to see him play on this team as much as they can use him. And that'll be a riches problem for the Avalanche is when you have to look down the lineup and you go, well, Keaton's playing well, but he's our seventh defenseman. We got to sit him down today. You just have to hope that you get to that point when the playoffs come around.
How about Val Nichushkin? And I know that, his goal is largely set up by Makar's shot, right? It was Makar's shot. Play two-man play between MacKinnon and Makar, I believe. Yes.
Yes.
And it's just cleanup for a Makar shot that squirts through Gibson, but Nichushkin is always in that place at the right time. And he is so calm. Like, he has cleaned up in that area so many times that it is absolutely nothing to him. Like, he never fumbles the puck down there. So smooth, so quick, just puts it in like a robot who's down there doing that job. And I was thinking about Val the other night because I was watching a little of the Wild Panthers game on TNT. And Matthew Tkachuk scores a couple goals in that game. And I start thinking about gritty players who might not be, the most skilled players, but are still pretty damn good. Like, they're not MacKinnon, they're not McDavid, but damn, they are effective out there. And Matthew Tkachuk is one of those players. And of course, one of the first names I think of in comparison is Valeri Nichushkin. But the difference, as I was thinking about it, between Nichushkin and Tkachuk is Tkachuk runs his mouth. He, is very animated. And hey, I respect that. Don't get me wrong. But Valeri Nichushkin, I started thinking about it. I was like, dude, this dude never says a word. He
doesn't say a word regardless, on or off the ice.
He never gets in. I can't think of a moment where Valeri Nichushkin has gotten in like some sort of extracurricular on the ice. Maybe, everyone gets into like a brief moment every now and again, but anything at all where Nichushkin was dirty or chirping no, this dude just plays the game. And he is a machine. It's like he turns his brain off, like for anything outside of hockey, and he just goes and he occupies the proper spot. He forechecks. He's on the penalty kill, net front power play, up and down the ice, always in the right spot. I mean, this guy is, maybe it's because he's not a boisterous personality, but he is the most underrated player in hockey. Nobody talks about him near enough. A question for the chat, question for you. I want to hear your underrated players in hockey. I want anyone to find anyone more underrated than Val Nichushkin. I was trying to think across the league. I'm struggling to think of guys who I'm like, man, he doesn't get enough love as being like a underrated force out there.
For a while, it was Sasha Barkov in Florida, but I think that there's so many people who realize just how dominant he is on both sides of the puck, especially after the Panthers coming away with the Stanley Cup championship last year. Sasha Barkov was my most underrated player in the National Hockey League for a good 5 years. I could throw Yanni Gourde up there, although he did get, after the championships in Tampa Bay and he gets brought over to Seattle. I suppose that like getting that deal kind of screams, no, you're not underappreciated anymore. Kem on Twitch says Sam Bennett. I think that's a good one. That's a great pull, Sam Bennett. That's a guy who's on an expiring contract that has been in a little bit of the rumor mill toward the Avalanche. I don't see Florida trading that guy away. He's a linchpin for his team, much like Nichushkin is for the Avalanche. Stanley Cup championship contenders don't trade those guys at the deadline, even if they're worried about not being able to retain them in the offseason. Sam Bennett's one of those players for sure. I'd throw him on there.
Yeah, he's a good one. That's exactly the type of player I'm looking for. He is underrated. He's a very physical player. Has a lot of Nichushkin's assets, but I still don't think he's Val. And Mel in the chat says, is it possible that his own teammate is the most underrated? Mikko. I think everyone across, like NHL fans, are very well aware of Mikko Rantanen and how dangerous he is.
I think he's more appreciated outside of Denver than he is in Denver.
I think so too. I think that people nationally look at the Avs, and they always say MacKinnon, Rantanen, much like they say McDavid, Draisaitl. I think MacKinnon Rantanen, excuse me, he gets brought up a lot. Whenever the Avs are on national TV, Rantanen is always regarded as a superstar in this league. I just look. Hey, I'm fine with Nichushkin flying under the radar. I really am. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather it be that way, to be honest with you. I want him to sneak up on people. He just keeps producing. He keeps doing it.
There's a few guys in the East. I think Jesper Bratt is criminally underrated.
Good player.
That guy is a hell of a hockey player. I think I think Carter Verhaeghe is criminally underrated as well. Like, that's a player that I'd love to have on the Avalanche, and there's no shot that he's going to be there. Mel throws up another one on YouTube. Andrei Kopitar was underrated for a very long time because he was much like Sasha Barkov in Florida, a guy who plays both ends of the puck. So he doesn't have these like gaudy offensive numbers, but you look at him, he's winning 59% of his draws and putting up 95 points and 30 goals. And he's like plus 42 by the end of the year. And lo and behold, the guy's got 2 Stanley Cup rings. Kopitar was one of them for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bratt on New Jersey, Verhaeghe, Florida, those teams, those markets, even though Florida is defending champ, they get overlooked. People, they talk about these three when they talk about the Avs: MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar, and they combine on the game-winning goal, the power play goal early in the third period. Though the power play was on one tonight.
I love the power play.
Man, there was one that they didn't score where Kale had bomb after bomb. It's coming around. And look, hey, is Jared Bednar listening to the show, man? I said put Colton back on PP1, and they took Nichushkin and they put him on power play 2 for a second. I said, he needs to be firmly on power play 1. Hey, I don't think that's the case, but maybe it was.
The power play that you're mentioning, I think they had 4 shots on goal. Makar had a one-timer. MacKinnon looked off a couple of them, but Makar had that final shot that Gibson was going left to right, but they didn't have a net front presence on. MacKinnon tried to sauce a puck to Ross Colton in the middle, and Colton made solid contact. It was like a soft pitch or a soft toss pitch in baseball, made solid contact on it, gets it on net to Gibson. I loved the power play this evening. They do go 1 for 4. They're now, 3 for their last 8 over their last 2 games. And prior to that, they were 5 of their previous 48 and 1 of 19 in their last 5 games ahead of that. So they went ice cold. It's coming back. You do get a failed penalty shot from Sam Girard. It's very clear that guy is not comfortable in a shootout situation. But I thought the special teams battle won you your last 2 games.
How many? They had the stat on the broadcast tonight, because Mel in the chat says we're also getting solid penalty killing now. This is huge. They've killed. It's got to be something, because it was either Connor when I was briefly in the car, or it was Mosier and Rycroft tonight. They had killed like 17 of their last 18. That's got to be up to like 18 of their last 19 right now.
So they go dating back to the loss at Carolina on December the 5th, when they gave up 2 power play goals on 5 opportunities. They now have only allowed 1 power play goal in every subsequent game. And that is now 8, 10, 15, 17, 22. So they have let in 1 goal on their last 22 power play opportunities since that game against Carolina.
Val's been back for a minute, but in my mind, he's one of, if not the best penalty killing forwards in the league. I always find it interesting whether or not they decide to start the kill with him or bring him in for the final minute, the second shift of the PK. I noticed they rotate that, but he's so dangerous. And then I honestly think that's the biggest reason. Everyone else is so solid, but I love Val on the PK because it wasn't good to start the season. It struggled to start the season, and now it's cooking. And it's special teams, it's goaltending, it's the little areas. That's where you win championships is the little areas, and that's where the Avs are clicking right now. Where they had been they were struggling on the power play, they were struggling 5-on-5. But if the defense is good, if you're killing well, if you're getting the good goaltending, the offense will come with this team. And it started to come the past couple games here out in California.
I always talk about the Scotty Bowman index, which is his tool that he used to measure effectiveness of both the penalty kill and the power play. And how he measured it is if your power play and PK ranks at the end of the season were a single digit number when you add them together, you are a bona fide Stanley Cup contender. So that means you have the third best power play, the fifth best penalty kill. That adds up to 8. And in Scotty Bowman's eyes, he goes, you should be a cup contender. The numbers from 10 to 20, playoff contender. From 20 down to 32 now with the expansions, that is bubble or bottom half and bottom third of the league. The Avs are trending in that direction now. Not towards the back half of the league, but they're trending in the proper direction towards Stanley Cup championship contention.
And now, Raj, we have Seattle. Sunday night, the Crack come to town. That's got to be a dub, right? I mean, that's
the new look Crack, the Capo Kakinen Kraken.
The last time that Capo Kako. Man, did you see? I wonder if I
Capo
could.
Kako Krako.
Did you see that one Rangers girl fan just lose her shit on the Rangers for botching the development, at least in her eyes, of Capo Kako? And not just, there's a lot of Rangers fans who hate how they handled him. Hey, I would be the funniest thing ever if he turned into what he should have been on the Seattle Kraken. I hope and assume it won't start as soon as Sunday night. When they come to Denver to play the Avs. But whenever the Kraken are not playing the Avs, I will absolutely root for Capo Kako to turn into the player he should have been and for the Rangers to rue that situation.
I don't know if he has the foot speed to be an impactful NHL player, especially with the number 2 pick in the draft, because and there's a reason why Rangers fans are so pissed off about that not working out. And that's because who was Capo Kako the consolation prize to?
Jack Hughes.
It was Jack Hughes. That was the draft that the Avalanche should have had another number 1 overall pick, and the balls didn't bounce their way. There is a legit possibility, because that was the Bowen Byram draft. The Avs got the number 1 rated defenseman in that draft, two picks ahead of Moritz Seider with the Detroit Red Wings. The Avs could have, in an alternate universe, had Nathan MacKinnon and Jack Hughes on the same team. So it cuts even deeper for Rangers fans when they look at how good Jack Hughes is with the Devils and how close the Devils are to knocking through and being a true Eastern Conference contender. And then the Rangers are just going the opposite direction after winning a President's Trophy last year. And Chris Drury's trying to do some triage fixes right now mid-season. I've watched a lot of Rangers hockey. He is sensationally talented with the puck. I don't see him being able to, and I'll use a basketball term here, I don't see him being able to create his own shot.
That's fair. And then Byram was 4th in that draft, right? So that was Byram.
Byram was number 4
to the Avs, and which turned into Casey Middlestat. I mean, it did make me think, huh? Like, the Avs have scored some goals in these past few games. Middlestat hasn't really factored in. In fact, he has no shots on goal in his last 3 games. That remains a thing. It's incredible that I notice Val, like, every time that second line is out there. But Middlestat remains a little underwhelming of late.
Yeah, he hasn't been popping on the score sheet, although he does create a goal. He creates that second goal from Yoel Kiviranta that puts the game out of reach for San Jose last night. He was the one who created that turnover, and that's what you need to see. He is on a slow streak. I expect him to bounce back. I expect him to bounce back when Drouin comes back for the Avalanche, and then he gets a little bit more help on that second line. He'll be just fine. Dude, every time I look back at that 2019 draft, I think about what could have been. And it's funny because the two guys that the Avs picked in that draft in Byram and Newhook, they're Stanley Cup champions, right? They were contributing members on a cup championship team. And every time I look back, I go, that should have been a draft where the Avalanche got Jack Hughes and Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. Man, Jack Hughes would have just been too good. Like that's good. Almost like the hockey gods just said, that's too much. That's too much. You can't have that. I did see somebody post a photo of the top 3 picks posing after that draft: Hughes, Kakko, and Kirby Dach. So Jack Hughes is the first pick. He's holding a number 1 finger for first pick. Kakko's holding 2 fingers because he's the second pick, and Dach is holding 3 fingers because he was the third pick. And the caption was, "How many teams have you played for in your career?" Right?
That's not nice.
It's perfect, though. Hey, Kirby Dach's he's only 23. He's a decent little player. Actually, he's only been on 2 teams, so that tweet is a lie. But either way, I found it funny.
2019. So the 2019 draft now for the Avalanche was Bowen Byram, Alex Newhook. They had the number 1 pick in the second round as well, because I'm almost positive they moved up in that second round to draft. Oh no, they had the number 1 pick in the third round. They traded Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat. They traded Alex Newhook for who was the Newhook trade?
Well, they said it was like I can't remember really. They got draft picks for Newhook, which allowed them to go trade with Tampa for Ross Colton.
Okay, yes, that's who they got.
I kind of view that as like a 3-team trade.
Yeah, you got 2 picks from them. You get Ross Colton as a Ross Colton was wasn't he a free agent?
He was free agent. Either way, I think that was the whole idea was go sign. And Newhook was costing like $2-3 million. I don't know what he's getting with Montreal, but he was due for something in that area as an RFA or something like that.
This is what happens when I try and do this on the fly. I screw it up. The 2023 draft, they netted the 31 pick. Oh, it turned into Mikhail Gulyayev, and I love that player. He's going to be sick for the Avs one day. That's at least I hope he's going to. Moving on from that, though, they then draft Drew Hellison in the second round. They trade him to Anaheim, and they get Josh Manson, Stanley Cup champion. They've got Matty Steinberg, who's played games for the Avs this year. It was a solid little draft for them in 2019, but it could have been amazing.
I'm sure you saw that Justin Barron, who the Avs traded to get MacKinnon, just got traded by the Canadiens, who's been on since the MacKinnon trade, to the Nashville Predators. So Justin Barron, Justus Annunen on the same team. I don't know if they really overlapped in the NHL, but there you go. The Nashville Predators are now an AHL affiliate of the Colorado Avalanche.
All right, Spring, before we head into the rest of the NHL scoreboard tonight, as we always do here on Between the Pipes, final thoughts on tonight's win against Anaheim before the Avs come back and face Utah at home for a little one-off home game.
Yeah, look, Anaheim just beat Winnipeg at home. Winnipeg's the best team in the West. I'm sure they felt like, hey, look at all these teams who have beat the Avs this year. We can do it. But shout out to the Avs for second night of a back-to-back, doing what they should have done, and that is beat Anaheim. And the goaltending, I mean, the story to me, because the offense will come, and that's what's happened in the last 2 games. It came around eventually. The goaltending is the story right now with the Avalanche. It is tremendous. Wedgwood and Blackwood, the woodshed. I mean, it's It's everything we hoped it would be so far. And look, these two players to me profile and project that this is not a fluke, that this will continue, especially having both of them. I don't think there will be too much of a workload for Blackwood. Wedgwood's going to spare him a decent amount. I don't think this is going to be like a 90-10 situation, maybe more in the 60-40, maybe more in the 70-30. But that tandem, it's, I think, every bit we thought it was going to be.
It feels like the rest of the league is kind of looking at this and going, oh no, you know the memes. I always look at Heat Daddy, one of my favorite Twitter accounts of all time. Always puts this out. They let us get to Friday. How could they let us get to Friday? The rest of the league's looking at the Avs and going, how did we let them get a goalie? How did we let them? That was the thing that made them mortal, is that they couldn't keep the damn puck out of their net. How did we let them get a goddamn goaltender? And now they have two. That's what the rest of the league is saying to themselves right now. Scoreboard throughout the rest of the league, 7 games, including your Avs 4-2 victory over the Ducks. That catapults them into the 3rd spot in the Central Division. Granted, the Stars have a handful of games in hand. Those Stars put up 42 shots at home against the Rangers, but playing to every piece of that contract that he's earning, Igor Shesterkin stops 41 of 42 shots. The Rangers win 3-1. It's a big-time help for the Avs there. And the Rangers, after making big-time moves, they were ice cold, this Rangers team. They got to make up some ground that they fell that fell through the ice in the first 20 days of December.
Yeah, speaking of the Rangers, shout out Jacob Trouba, who we saw tonight. He was fine. I thought, for Anaheim. He had his moments. Yeah, I guess if New York's going to have a get-right game on the road, then hell yeah, make it the Dallas Stars. That you actually can't script that any better. That is one of, if not maybe the best team that could have happened against. So love that, especially in Dallas. You knew the Rangers would have a get-right game eventually. There is two. I'm not surprised by their struggles. Maybe the level of struggle was a bit out of my expectation range, more so than I would have thought. I've always felt that while I like that team, it's not constructed a way that I think that I prefer, like how the Avs are constructed, where it was just through the draft horses that are homegrown. Nonetheless, they're better than they have been. They were going to get right eventually. Salute for doing it in Dallas.
The Avs get help in division not once but twice, as Utah beats Minnesota in regulation by a score of 2-1 on just 18 shots. Dylan Genther, the power play goal halfway through that third period, is the deciding one. The Wild, despite their torrid start, they just have a 4-point lead on the Avs with 2 games in hand. Like, there was a time in space not too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago, where you looked up at Minnesota and you went, is anyone ever going to catch these guys? Is anyone ever going to catch the Winnipeg Jets in the Central? And as these 2 weeks have gone by, Spring, it just gets closer and closer and closer together.
Yeah, which to me is zero surprise. I mean,
you were very level-headed.
It's been right there for the. I mean, come on, it's the Jets and the Jets to me are better than the Wild. The Wild, I absolutely looked at and said, "Oh, you enjoy where you're at right now," because that will likely not be the case as this season progresses. The Jets, I felt the same way about, certainly at the start of the season, but then they made me buy into them a little bit more. But look, there's no way that both of those teams will not be looking over their shoulder and saying, holy shit, the Avs are right there. And Minnesota to me was the more likely to be like, I knew it. There they are. Damn it. It's just a matter of time.
My team in the Eastern Conference that's doing that, that's giving me those types of vibes that you have for Minnesota. Those are the Washington Capitals. In 32 games now have garnered an astounding 46 points and pace the entire Metropolitan Division. Yes, the Metro that has the Devils and the Hurricanes and the Rangers and the surprising Flyers from last year. Heck, you can even throw the Penguins, who we left them for dead at the beginning of the season, but they're 7-2-1 in their last 10 now. They're still on the outside looking in, but Sidney Crosby is dragging those guys by the scruff of their neck. Washington wins another game. They beat Carolina 3-1 at home. The Caps just keep winning.
Well, and Ovi's he's due back any day now. I don't think he played tonight. Let me.
I think I would have seen a fanfare about him.
You're right. Yeah, we would have. That would have been all over our Twitter. But he's close.
He did not play.
Like, they've held their water fairly well with him out, and I know he's an older version of himself, but I thought maybe when he got hurt that they would come back down to earth a little bit. But they're a solidly constructed team with a decent little goaltending tandem in Lindgren and Thompson. I don't look. I could see them holding a top spot in the Metro, if not winning that division. Now, they'll get exposed in the playoffs eventually, but the only reason I say that is, like, look, Minnesota and Winnipeg have to deal with Colorado behind them, even Dallas behind them, who I think are better than they have been. I think Dallas should be at the top of the Central if, it wasn't to be the ads. Turns out it's Winnipeg. Okay, fine. Washington's, they're getting the benefit right now of the Rangers being that bad, and then, like, New Jersey, Carolina, they're teams that they are just failing to grasp that brass ring. They are just, they're a little fake to me. So Washington, as long as New York continues to struggle, I think they get the benefit of not having, Winnipeg and Minnesota. I'm more concerned about Colorado and Dallas breathing down my neck than I am New Jersey, Carolina, Pittsburgh, unless the Rangers get their act together. Like, they're benefiting from the Rangers, pooing themselves right now.
Certainly. Yeah, 100% they are. Maple Leafs double up the Sabres, who are now 0-9-3 in their last 12 games. And the front office has famously said the answer is in the room. And I don't know if the answer is in the room in Buffalo. 0-9-3 over 12 games is a rough stretch. The Maple Leafs get 6 different goal scorers in that game, including William Nylander's 21st of the season as an empty netter. That moves him into the top 3 in terms of goal scorers this year. The Canadiens mount to come back in the third period on the road against the Detroit Red Wings. Patrik Laine, ever since he came back from his preseason injury, the guy's got 7 goals, and he gets the game winner in the third tonight. All 7 goals have come on the power play. He has 8 points and 7 power play goals.
Wow.
That's the most Patrik Laine stat I've ever heard.
I've noticed him in the score sheet a lot recently. I did not realize they were all power play goals. Hey, good for him. What's his contract situation? Because is he auditioning here for another team? Because while I like Montreal.
No, I think he's signed in Montreal.
All right.
I'm almost positive Laine is signed long-term as a Canadian.
He's having a little renaissance here. At least of late. He's got 1 year after this.
Okay, so this year and then 8.7. It still feels
that's expensive. If he's gonna play like this, he's worth that number. But I don't know if it's sustainable. But that's a guy who, if he's gonna play like this, could be a good addition for a team.
And then your final game of the night, again, just divisional help all around the league for the Avalanche, although the Blues are on the outside looking in this season in a little bit of a retool out there in St. Louis. The Panthers, in a really entertaining 3-goal game, they win 2-1 in overtime. Did you see Alexander Barkov in overtime in this one? He sets up the power play, draws a penalty because he just has like 3 Blues players dragging him down to the ice. And then he gets the puck back on the 4-on-3, walks in, and it looks like he's just saucing a puck to the net, finds the corner, game over. Alexander Barkov's a freak.
And you're right. He's less underrated than he has been, but he's an underrated player. that he is. Florida's full of them because it's freaking Florida. It's South Beach. They are full of underrated players. Scrappy though for St. Louis to get a point there. Friday night, defending champs on the road. Jim Montgomery gets them a point. That's scrappy.
I mean, they're staying respectable. They're 15, 16, and 4. That is respectable. They're not Nashville. They're certainly not Chicago. I think them and Utah being like neck and neck with each other for the rest of the season feels kind of right to me. I don't believe that either one of those teams is truly going to push for a playoff spot this year. They may prove me wrong, but they feel like the next tier. And while Utah has been building this thing for a few years, certainly starting in Arizona, and now being able to jumpstart it with all of the money with the new ownership, St. Louis is now trying to do that in a different manner, where you retool with some young, exciting players on the roster. You have a bunch of old defensemen. They just added Cam Fowler to another old-ass D-man with a big cap hit. I wonder what Doug Armstrong is doing out there in St. Louis, because he's got his head coach.
No, I mean, shout out to Jim Montgomery. I firmly believe that the Blues have like 8 to 10 less points right now than he is getting more out of that team, which is average with, some decent players on that roster, but he's getting
Robert
more
Thomas
out of that.
Is good.
Rob Thomas is a very good player.
Good.
But he's getting more out of that team than most coaches would get out of that team. There's a reason the Blues said, thank you. I don't even know who their coach was after Berube, but they fired him. Some guy. They were just like, hey, thanks for coming. Jim Montgomery's out there. Let's take a swing. Hey, he's getting fight out of that team. He really is.
He sure is. All right, Spring, let's call it. It's late here on a Friday night. People are going into their early holiday weekends. The Avs will take the ice on Sunday evening against the Seattle Kraken. I think I misspoke and said that they were playing Utah in that game. They'll play Utah 5 days later after the NHL's little hiatus that they have around the Christmas holiday. That game will be at 6 p.m. on NHL Network. You can hear on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5, starting with a 5:30 pregame show, and then Spring and I will be live sometime around 8:45 or 9 p.m. right when that game wraps up. But for Spring, I'm Raj. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know it's been a few games since we've been able to talk to you guys. Thank you for being patient. A lot of craziness was going on this week with the Broncos and the late games and the double dipperoos that we have with the Nuggets. But we appreciate you guys checking in with us on a game by game basis. And thanks as always to our friends at Safeway. We'll talk to you guys in just a couple of days' time as the Avs return home to take on the Seattle Kraken. Avs win. Later.